he will leave everything. Around 4,000 years ago, in the ancient fields of Mesopotamia, a family stands between what they know and what God promises. Stay with me as we watch one man answer a calling that will alter history. Abraham is a settled man from Ur who hears God call him to leave home. He is rooted in family ties, yet restless with a promise that pulls him toward an unknown land. Sarah is Abraham's wife, traveling with both hope and uncertainty. Her steady presence anchors the household even as God speaks a plan that demands trust and leaving behind security. In that moment under the open sky, God speaks to Abraham and says, "Go from your country." The voice calls him to uproot his household. Abraham hears not merely instructions, but a covenantal summons that will bind his family to a future people. As the light lingers, God explains the reason. A land will be given and descendants as numerous as the stars. Abraham understands this is not personal advancement, but a covenant promise with long national consequences for lineage and land. As dawn comes, Abraham does not argue. He gathers his wife, his nephew, servants, and flocks. The narrative makes clear that faith here is concrete, leaving homeland, possessions, and social ties to walk toward a divine promise. Days pass, and then the caravan arrives at Canaan's borders. The land is new, with hills and fields that smell of dust and fig trees. Abraham steps into the territory that God has named for his descendants, even though the full claim has not yet been given. When Abraham arrives, he builds an altar and calls on the name of the Lord. This act of sacrifice and worship publicly claims the promise and marks the land as sacred ground in the language of covenant rituals of the time. But before they can settle, a famine strikes the land. Abraham faces a hard decision: remain in the promised region and risk starvation, or move to Egypt where food is. The crisis tests the promise against immediate survival needs. When the caravan reaches Egypt, Abraham fears for his life because Sarah is beautiful. He tells a half-truth and asks her to say she is his sister. This strategy is a human compromise born of fear that will have moral and social consequences. In Egypt, Sarah is taken into Pharaoh's house because she is presented as a sister. Abraham receives wealth in return. The story shows how fear-driven decisions can entangle the promised people with foreign powers and possessions. But in that house, God intervenes. Pharaoh and his household are afflicted, and the cause is revealed. The narrative makes plain that divine protection surrounds the promise even when human faith falters. When morning comes, Pharaoh summons Abraham and rebukes him for the deception. Pharaoh returns Sarah and sends them away with gifts. This act removes them from danger, but also marks the tension between divine promise and human tactics. As they leave Egypt, Abraham bears new wealth, but also a humble conscience. The journey resumes toward Canaan, teaching that God's purposes advance despite human weakness, and that deliverance may come through both promise and correction. When they return to Canaan, Abraham builds another altar. This repeated ritual shows that faith is practiced again and again. The promise remains, and Abraham's ongoing worship signals trust that the covenant will be fulfilled in time. Days pass into years in the telling, and the text points forward. Abraham's obedience sets the foundation for a people and a land. Genesis 12 teaches that the call of God is not merely for one life, but for a lineage that will change history. Yet the story does not romanticize obedience. Abraham feels the cost, fear, moral compromise, and the strain on family. Genesis 12 acknowledges that following a divine call often involves hardship and painful choices. In that humble morning, the text reveals a theological point. God's promise continues despite human failure. The covenant is initiated by divine grace, not by perfect human obedience, which reshapes how readers understand faith and election. When night falls, Abraham looks up and remembers the promise of descendants. The chapter ends with a future-oriented note, a name and a land given by God, a theological seed that will grow into a people set apart. Genesis 12 teaches that faith is a call to leave behind certainty for a divine promise that shapes nations. It shows that God's covenantal initiative endures even through human fear and failure. If this story moved you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you do not miss the next one.